Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming along to our Recovery Partners and Ability Partners online event, Embracing Equity with Akii Ngo. Please be aware that this session is being recorded, and we kindly ask that all audience members remain on mute. You are invited to put questions and comments into the chat for our Q&A session at the end of the talk, and we will monitor that throughout this afternoon. We're proud to host this special event, and we'll shortly hear from our wonderful speaker, Akii Ngo. I would also like to welcome our two Auslan interpreters, Amanda and Dima, who will join us not only today, but for all future Recovery Partners and Ability Partners events. Amanda and Dima will swap out, so you will see them at different times throughout the afternoon's session, and they will interpret for us. I'd like to formally begin with an acknowledgement of country. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands we are meeting on. We wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and their contribution they make to the life of these cities and regions. We pay our respects to elders past and emerging and present, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal people and their ongoing culture and connection to the land and waters of Australia. Welcome again, and thank you for joining this very special event. My name is Kelly Brown, and I am the founder and director of Recovery Partners, and it is my absolute pleasure to host this event this afternoon. As mentioned before, this session is recorded, so we do ask that everybody please remain on mute. Today, we will be hearing from our speaker, Akii Ngo, who brings a wealth of knowledge and passion to help us understand the challenges and opportunities that exist when we aim to embrace equity. Akii is an international and multi-award-winning disability, inclusion, and gender equity activist. Akii is a family and intimate partner survivor advocate, accessibility consultant, educator, trainer, writer, keynote speaker, panelist, host MC, and is also a represented and internationally published model and actor. Akii is also the accessibility manager at Sydney World Pride and the Sydney Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras. Akii is deeply passionate about disability rights, intersectionality, inclusion, and co-design. Akii is a proud young disabled, transgender, non-binary, and queer person of colour. They are a qualified health nutritionist and health promotion practitioner with over 12 years experience throughout Australia and overseas in capacity building, advocacy, policy, co-design, accessibility, and systematic health promotion practice and evaluation. Akii has spent their entire career dedicated to making a positive and sustainable difference to the community. And for that, we are very proud to welcome them to share their story. A warm welcome to Akii. Over to you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Kelly. I am so grateful to be here today. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are on. I am on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations in Naarm, also known as Melbourne. I would also like to do an image description of myself for any blind or low vision folk. So I am a person of Asian heritage. I have olive light skin. I have pastel pink, blue, and purple hair that's currently clipped up. I'm wearing a green olive adaptable shirt and a button-up collared shirt with little dash hounds on it. And my background is blurred. I'm also wearing spectacles and I have a nose ring. So that is a visual descriptor of what my appearance is, and I am very excited to be here today. I presume my slides are on your screen, so we'll just go through that. So just a hello and introduction about myself. You found out a bit about my information from Kelly, from that lovely welcome. So I'm a relatively youngish, complex, chronically ill person who lives with quite serious, debilitating chronic pain. And I live with disability and I'm a wheelchair user. I am trans, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm non-binary, but I'm obviously I'm feminine presenting. And I am a biological female. I live with lots of intersections. So I come from a refugee background. My parents were refugees from the Vietnam War, and I've lived and I was born and raised in Australia, and I work as mentioned by Kelly, as the accessibility manager at Sydney World Drive. I also work within the co-design and community engagement space within the NDIA, focusing on LGBTIQA strategy. And I do a lot of work within disability rights, activism, representation, and ensuring that people with disabilities, people with complex or any chronic health issues, hidden or visible or obvious, are not left behind. I, as mentioned, live in Naarm, Melbourne, and I'm deeply passionate about ensuring that people are represented in workplaces, in education, in all aspects of our community. I'm a counsellor on the Victorian Disability Council, and I also am on numerous advisory panels for disability, LGBTIQA+, mental health, carers' rights for the Royal Children's Hospital, as well as the National Ethnic Disability Alliance and various other organisations to ensure that I can provide as much representation to the community as possible. And so just a little bit about my story. I have been unwell my entire life. I have no understanding of what it feels to be healthy. And I have been living in chronic pain, or have had chronic pain, since about the age of 8. That has progressively gotten significantly worse over the years, the pain I mean, and has been various levels of debilitating, painful, serious, and I've been in and out of hospital my entire life and have had numerous surgeries and lived with the constant battle of chronic health issues, as well as the challenges of disability in the sense of inaccessibility. And I use that in the social model of disability, which means I'm not disabled by my disabilities, but more so the community and the society around me, in the sense of if there were more accessible places, I would be able to be and go places rather than be left out if there isn't a ramp and only stairs to a venue, or if there wasn't an interpreter when I needed an interpreter, or if there wasn't captions when I needed captions. So the social model of disability is highlighting that we are disabled by the environments around us, and if we are supported and there is accessible provisions and accessibility put in place, we can actively contribute and be a part of the community and live our fullest life the way that we want to. And so I have, to continue with my story, just to give you a bit of context, I lived with chronic pain through a spinal injury, content note regarding intimate partner and family violence. As a result of intimate partner and family violence, so one of my main disabilities is a result of intimate partner violence. So I do a lot of advocacy work and share my story about situations of violence and gender-based violence and gender-based harm and unfortunate violent relationships that cause harm, not only emotional but physical and lasting harm, and the importance of advocacy work and activism in that space and lived experience. And I also live with various other conditions that cause chronic pain, other health issues, and other complexities that I will not go into. But as mentioned, I'm very deeply passionate about intersectionality and the work about representing and ensuring that we, as chronically ill or disabled people, can feel respected, valued, and know that we can contribute to the world as we want to and live the life that we want to and be fulfilled in the way that we want to by having the support of knowing and when I mean support, I mean having accessible spaces, of having employees and organizations that ensure that we can be involved in work and involved in meaningful activities that give us an understanding that we are able to, even though we might be different. So I move around the world differently. So I use my wheelchair, but that doesn't make me any less valuable. It doesn't make my contributions or my lived experience or the way that I, should enjoy the world any differently. And when a barrier comes in terms of inaccessibility, it's not on me. And that's where society needs to highlight change and why accessibility, inclusion, and recognizing people's differences matters. And which is why I will go into the theme of embracing equity. Embracing equity is about understanding that people are all different. That would be the next slide. But so understanding that we are all different and that that you can't provide someone with the exact same formula or the exact same treatment plan or the exact same recovery plan and expect them to react the exact same way and have the exact same outcomes, because you need to consider all aspects of a human being. We can't compartmentalize who we are. I can't turn off my disability. I can't turn off my chronic pain. I can't turn off the fact that I'm a person of color. I can't turn off that I'm LGBTIQA, that I'm a queer person, that I'm a trans person. I also can't turn off the fact that I'm autistic and I have ADHD. These are all parts of who I am that make me who I am. And none of those parts should be anything that I should be ashamed of, but they also should be things that people recognize when they work with me, are my colleagues, are my companions, are my friends, are my community, and are my support. Because I can't just pick and choose who I am. I can't turn off my pain as much as I want to a lot of the time, because living with chronic pain is deeply challenging and not fun at all. And I'm sure if there are any participants today on the webinar that live with chronic pain are probably nodding along with me and completely agreeing that chronic pain is not something that we want to be living with, but we have to be living with, meaning, we have no choice but to keep going. And equity is about recognizing that we're all different and providing us with different personalized and person-centered supports. The difference between equity and equality is giving everybody the same thing and expecting that to work for everyone. So an example is to have myself and a person who doesn't use a wheelchair, doesn't live with chronic pain, doesn't have any health issues, a set of stairs, and go, you get the same thing, you'll be fine. And that's not equitable, because that's not recognizing that the person that doesn't have any of the chronic pain or the disability can use the stairs, whereas I obviously cannot. That's not recognizing that equity is about differences and being fair, and even is about leveling the playing field and making it even for everyone to be involved and to contribute, rather than just giving everyone the same thing and expecting that to work for everyone's scenario and situation. And so equity and embracing it is about embracing everyone for who they are and everything that they bring to the table as a person, as a whole being, and not expecting people to close off parts of who they are because it's uncomfortable or unpalatable, because, you know, talking about pain or disability is not the easiest thing and it's not comfortable. It's about recognizing that everyone is different and that is okay. And even people that don't live with chronic pain and don't have disability, they are different as well. And no one is exactly the same. And it's about recognizing everybody's individuality and working with that individuality to ensure that whatever we're providing or supporting them with works for them and makes them feel valued, acknowledged, and validated within their own experience. And that's what equity is about. And from that, which I've highlighted already, is the intersectionality, which I won't go into because I think I've mentioned quite a bit. And that is really just recognizing us as humans have so many different identities. We can be, you know, professionals, we can be parents, we can come from a cultural different background, we can come from a religious background, we can have, you know, different socioeconomic backgrounds, educational backgrounds, we can have disability, we can have chronic illness, we can have we can have different sexual orientations, different genders, X, Y, and Z, all of these different things. And there are different levels of marginalization, different levels of oppression, different levels of the way the world essentially sees us, treats us, values us, respects us. And the way that they all connect and intersect is what intersectionality is about. And so if, as a chronically ill, disabled person of color from a refugee background, it's recognizing that people with disabilities experience violence at disproportionate rates, particularly women, girls, non-binary and feminine presenting people with disabilities. It's then recognizing that people of color experience violence at higher rates than non-people of color, and then recognizing other things. And then so therefore that compounds and it all connects and it all intersects. So by recognizing the different identities that people have, it's recognizing the intersectionalities that make us who we are and recognizing the challenges that we experience. And then that's how we can work with people and really, really, truly value for them as a whole being and support them as a whole being. So on the note of that, living life with all the things I've mentioned, I'll be honest with you, you can pretty much imagine it is not easy. A lot of my life is doctors, specialists, GPs, blood tests, hospitals, emergency departments, a whole lot of medications, some of which are exceptionally expensive because they are not on the PBS, waiting lists for specialists and surgeries and all of that. And also just balancing that with literally everything else that every other human being wants to do. Have fun, have friends, have have community, do things that make you happy, and also to be able to work, to be able to contribute. So for me, prior to the pandemic, prior to be able to work remotely, to do things remotely, such as we are doing right now, and having that accessibility, the maximum I was able to work, which I struggled to do, was 2 days a week, because the commute to get to work would wipe me out. It would take away my spoons, as some people might recognize. It would take away all my energy. It would literally caused me so much pain. And then I'd get to work, and then when I had to do 8 hours of work and then try to get myself home, and then by the time I get home, I would not eat. I'd barely be able to sleep because I'd be in so much pain. And then I wouldn't want to have a social life. I would be isolated. I wouldn't want to communicate with anyone because I would be exhausted. And all of that was just so that I could work. And then I'd be able to do that 2 times a week, and the rest of the week I would spend recovering, and then I'll just repeat that. And it was not fun at all. It was very, it was really, really challenging because all of my friends who weren't chronically ill or disabled, they were working full time, going out for dinner dates, going out partying, doing all this stuff on the weekend. And mind you, I was like early 20s and this was my life. And I was like, how am I going to live like this? Like, it's rough and it's not fair. And I'm sure a lot of people that live with chronic pain and disability recognize that it's like, wow, I have to deal with all of these additional things on top of just being alive, being an adult. And we all know that adulting is not easy, you know, bills and putting a roof over our head and, oh my God, interest rates, you know, all of that jazz. Like, it's not easy. And then we then have to, on top of all of that, balance keeping ourselves alive, essentially, keeping ourselves having a quality of life, and then also advocating for ourselves, advocating for the life that we want. So just to go through that, if you go into the next slide, you get an insight to who I am as a person. So I, as I mentioned, was born exceptionally unwell, and my parents were refugees. So you can imagine not speaking English, not knowing the language, trying to, you know, get to know a new country, and then have a child that's exceptionally unwell and not even know, like, I didn't know what my condition or what I was born with until I was about 15, and I called the hospital myself and had to go through all my records to know why I have 2 giant surgical scars on my stomach and have numerous and have had like countless surgeries. So I was born with a life-threatening condition called necrotizing enterocolitis, which is essentially my intestines were just dying. They were just gangrene. They didn't develop, and I had to have surgery within hours of birth. And I was intubated for over 8 months of my life. So 8 months of my life already. I got a head start on hospital stays. My body was already there. I also got a head start on travel because I had to be transported from Geraldton, which is the regional town that I was born in, to Perth, which is the hospital I had to have my emergency surgery in. I'm an avid traveler, which is why I make that joke. So I got a head start with the traveling because I took my first flight before I was even a couple of hours old. And I've also had spinal surgeries. I've had bilateral carpal tunnel surgery. So I actually can't write with a pen. I can't, like, I can, you know, it's difficult to feed myself. It's difficult to type. It's difficult to do all these things. I've also got quite severe spinal stenosis, which is the narrowing of my spinal column, which is spinal cord compression. I might just preface this with the fact that I am proudly you know, I'm getting paid for this and I value that, and this is part of my job. But I may preface this with, I'm happy to share my story, but not every person with chronic illness or disability is comfortable. And please do not expect people with chronic illness or disability to share their story, because sometimes that can be exceptionally traumatic, and it could be also something very, very difficult and triggering for them. So don't just expect people to tell them, you know, like, what happened to you, what's wrong with you, X, Y, and Z. Don't use those questions. I just wanted to preface that I'm sharing my story because I feel comfortable to, and I'm in an environment where I want to share my story to be able to provide background, and it's also a part of the work that I do because I'm in a position where I feel safe enough and comfortable enough and valued enough to do so. So if you then show the other images, I grew up not really thinking that I had much to offer, that my life would just be pain, 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 more pain, which it is, to be honest, and suffering. But then I understood the social model of disability. I then discovered something called disability pride, and recognizing that I am valuable and I am, I'm okay just as I am, and I'm not broken, and that I don't need to be fixed, and that I can go through the world as a wheelchair user and live a very fulfilling life with friends, partners, so on and so forth, and live and travel the world. So there's a picture of me in Portugal after the pandemic, and I solo traveled there with my wheelchair, which I very unoriginally named as Cherry because I couldn't figure out a name for my chair. So I decided, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll call you Cherry. So Cherry and I traveled through Portugal. And I did not know that Portugal was called the City of Seven Hills, which I probably should have done more research, but it is. So I still did it. And Cherry and I went up through all these hills. And as if you've been to Europe, the cobblestones are brutal. And Cherry survived it, and so did I. And so I ate all the Portuguese egg tarts, and I traveled and I did all of that. And I will admit, it's not easy. You don't just book a flight and hop on a plane. You have to go through all the security checks with your wheelchair and your lithium batteries and all of that. But also I have to have a doctor's note for all of my medication, X, Y, and Z, because they are substances that aren't necessarily legal or okay for certain countries. I have to do all of that, have my medication summaries, make sure that I have a correct supply of my medications, not bring too much because it looks suspicious, unfortunately, but not bring too little because I won't have enough to survive my trip. So there's so many things involved in something that some people take for granted. Even hopping on a train or tram it's that simple for some people. I have to plan around accessibility. I have to plan around where I go, where I sit, so the conductor can see where I am, so they take out the ramp. They don't forget me when my stop is off. So travel's the same thing. It's about so many aspects, but it can work. And I've been able to do things that make me happy, that bring value to my life, despite living with severe, disabling chronic pain and disability. I also have 2 sausage dogs that are the light of my life and bring me joy, that get me out every single day with their cute little faces and their little bodies, hence why I'm wearing the little dashdown top. And they bring me joy, but they also give me purpose because I need to take them out. Even when I'm in pain, when I'm struggling, when I really don't want to move, I go, I need to take you out for, a potty break. I need to take you out for a walk. So then I force myself out to get fresh air. And then also I get to do events like these and share my story in hopes to actually inspire you. I hope that there is life beyond all the challenges that you may be going through. And there are support services such as recovery and ability partners that exist so that you can get to a point where you can do the things that fulfill you. You might not be a dog person, you might not like travel, you might not like any of the things that I love, but you can get to do the things for you by incorporating equity and intersectionality and highlighting the fact that, you can be disabled and, unique and kind and genuine and wonderful human beings. And we all have unique characteristics, goals and dreams, just like every other person. And that's the next slide. I was very honoured to be a UN ambassador, United Nations ambassador for the International Day of People with Disabilities, where I was recognized for the work that I do, by, focusing on advocacy, activism, visibility for people of all sorts of different backgrounds, and recognizing that we can all contribute, we can all make a difference in the way that we want to, we can all live the life that we want to live despite our challenges, despite our barriers. Everyone has challenges and barriers, regardless if you do or don't have a disability or chronic health issue. But if you do, there are ways that you can receive support and or make it work for you. So for me, I'm now working more than I've ever worked in my entire life because of accessibility, because of working remotely, so that I'm not spending unnecessarily spoons on commuting to work unnecessarily when I can work from the comfort of my own home, waiting for my medications to work. Or when my pain is at its peak, I can go and lie down and take a nap, take my medications, have my hot water bottle, which I have like 10 million of them that are on me constantly, and be comfortable and rest and let that pain or the real height of my pain pass, and then continue to do my work. At the end of the day, I've said to like my employers, as long as I get my job done, as long as I meet my KPIs, and as long as I can show that I'm competent in every single way, then why do I need to, there's no specific requirement for me to do X, Y, and Z. And if we do need to meet in person and do things like that, we can plan that ahead. And if we can plan that ahead, I can plan my journey, I can plan my accessibility, I can plan my pain medication, I can do all of that, and then I can be my best self. And I know that obviously with chronic health issues, it goes up and down and it can flare, but you can do your best to understand the way your body's going to work. When you live in Melbourne, it's kind of different because the weather's terrible, and it's, oh my goodness, it's just so inconsistent, and inconsistent weather really impacts me. So cold weather makes my pain significantly worse, but hot then cold, then hot then cold, my body just cannot handle. And I'm aware of that. So I just go, oh my gosh, I need to look at the weather. I need to prepare for that. I need to know how my medications work, bring extra hot water bottles, X, Y, and Z, and do my best to plan and prepare and make it work. And also communicate, with my employers how it is, with my support personnel, if I have support personnel in my life, to make sure that I can contribute